Hey guys, Unit 522 here, and before the video begins, I just want to take a second to thank all the viewers who submitted their stories. I try to put out at least one of these viewer submission videos every week, so I do appreciate you guys sharing your stories. All these stories are from a perspective of a female. Stories number 3 and 2 are pretty creepy, but in story number 1 things do get a little extreme. So if things like sexual assault and kidnapping bother you, I wouldn't recommend listening to it. I just wanted to give everyone a fair warning. So without any further ado, please enjoy the true scary stories. This past September, a friend of mine and I were walking back from dinner at our campus cafeteria to our dorm rooms. As a side note, we're both female, 20 and about 5'5", and not bad looking. September in the South is like summer. Even though it was about 5:30, the sun was still shining brightly, the air heavy with the late afternoon heat. A ton of students were milling about the coffee shop we were walking past, sipping iced coffees and chatting. Then it happened. We were almost at our building when a rusted light blue car pulled up alongside us, slowing down to match our pace. The man who poked his head out of the driver's side had a blonde buzz cut, tan skin, and was wearing an old t-shirt. He looked to be in his late 30s, and he seemed to be tall, but was on the skinnier side. But what I remember most about him were his eyes. They were huge, maniacal, and blue. The iris of his eyes were a weird off-white, almost yellow. I think the best word to describe him is unhinged. That's what he sounded like when he called to us.
"You girls order Uber?"
My friend and I exchanged a very weary glance. "No," I answered. Picking up the pace, the man continued to follow.
"Well, do you want one? Since I'm already here, it's free."
His voice was a mix of over-eager and desperate. Now, I've never personally used an Uber service, so I'm not sure if they're the same everywhere, but in my city, most of our Ubers are sleek black or silver cars with a visible sticker that indicates they're official Uber drivers, and they are never free. We shook our heads and my friend muttered, unannoyed, "No thank you." I swear the man never took his eyes off of us as we walked along that sidewalk. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't even blink. He was persistent, telling us that he would take us anywhere we wanted to go. We just needed to get in his car. Then we started to veer away from the sidewalk towards a nearby building. He stepped on the gas, clearly frustrated, but just before he started to drive away, I could have sworn I heard him say,
"Smart girls."
At first, my friend and I didn't really register what happened, so we didn't report the guy. It wasn't until later, when we were rehashing the story to my roommate, that we realized what this man's intentions towards us probably were, and they were far from good. The main theory we have is that the guy was on drugs, which would explain his maniac and borderline desperate behavior. We think that he got it into his head to see how easy it would be to kidnap some girls by posing as an Uber driver, and then do God knows what to them once they fell for it. First off, a description. I am 27 going on 28 in a month. I'm a female from southern Wisconsin. A little less than 6 years ago, I had completed and received my high school equivalency diploma, and not even a month later, I attended the community college I had received said diploma from. I didn't then, and I still don't have my license, so Mom's boyfriend would take me to school in the mornings on his way to work, and another family member would come and pick me up to take me home. Sometimes I just had daytime classes, Sometimes I had evening and night classes, sometimes both. On this particular day, I had one evening class on a Friday, and I just got out as the campus was closing. My cousin offered to pick me up, but she was taking a while, but that didn't really bother me. She worked long hours, and on top of it, had a toddler to take care of, so I understood. But then things turned creepy. As the sun was setting, I remember waiting by the front doors for my cousin to arrive. There's a small walkway about 15 feet long and about 4 feet wide. I was waiting at the end of the walkway, not even a step between there and the parking lot, when a man I'd previously seen as the campus janitor came through the double doors. I don't remember exactly what he looked like, other than that he was an older man, thin and average height with gray hair, but that's all I remember. I think he might have been wearing some kind of baseball cap too. Again, the smaller details are fuzzy. He started up small talk, which I didn't mind. It was nice to have someone to talk to while I waited for my cousin. On top of that, he kept his distance, which I appreciated, since I'm really shy and timid. I must admit, unlike a lot of girls who post these types of stories, I'm not attractive at all. Average at best. I'm overweight, more so then than I am now, with an average face. However, as the minutes passed by, he slowly inched closer to me, and his questions became more personal and invasive. I don't remember them all, but I do remember things like where I lived, if I had a boyfriend, where my cousin was coming from, and when she was supposed to pick me up. My own answers became short and to the point. This was my polite and small way of showing this guy that he was making me uncomfortable, and that I wanted to be left alone now, but I didn't have it in me to be blunt or impolite. After a few more minutes passed, he disappeared back into the campus, and I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking the encounter was over and hoping more than ever to see my cousin's truck. It was all good, until about 10 minutes later, when a blood-red truck showed up. Thinking that this was my cousin, who has a similar-looking truck, I take a few steps forward, but stopped suddenly when I saw who it was sitting in the driver's side seat, through the window. You guessed it. He pulled down the passenger side window, and I remember him making a small joke about me getting into his truck with him. A few more things were said from his end, but then something came out of his mouth that really pissed me off, but scared the shit out of me at the same time.
Well, I guess your cousin's not coming after all.
Or something along those lines. I knew what he was insinuating, but I would never have gotten into his truck with him. I didn't care if I had to camp out on campus. It wasn't going to happen. What scared me, though, was the thought of this encounter turning really ugly and being forced into this creep's truck. Luckily for me, 2 teenagers had just shown up and were making their way through the college's parking lot. They seemed to just be on a small evening stroll through the country where the campus was located at. Hell, most of Wisconsin is country. I saw the janitor tense up and yell,
"Oh, I'll be right back,"
and then sped off. Before I knew it, he was gone. This fact solidified in my mind that he was up to no good, that something creepy was dancing through his mind, that his intentions regarding me and the fact that we were seemingly alone were not innocent or helpful. About 10 or 15 minutes later, my cousin finally showed up, and I had a nice peaceful ride back home. I didn't dare tell her or my mom, who I was still living with while I went to school, because I was afraid my mom would make going to college more complicated for me. And I have to say that aside from this encounter, I loved college. I still miss it. I actually miss doing my homework, and the sleepless nights of writing papers and reading textbooks. I wish I could afford to go back, honestly. I ended up graduating with an associate's degree in business management spring of 2012, and it felt like such a great accomplishment to me. I also never had any more encounters with the janitor. He never even talked to me again, thankfully. I would still tense up every now and again when I would see him. With all that said, thank you to the teenagers who were having an evening stroll through the country. You probably saved me from being raped or even murdered and left in a ditch somewhere in the country. To the creepy janitor, I'm sure you had no innocent intentions towards me. I haven't seen you since 2012, and I hope it stays that way. This happened to me last year when I was walking down a dirt road. I've always taken walks whenever I was feeling distant or depressed. This day I was feeling really down, and I had thoughts of suicide run across my mind. So I started walking down this road, looking through my music as I made some distance from my house. It was starting to get dark due to time changes. I looked back occasionally to see if anyone I knew was looking for me, but there was no one in sight. Just streetlights at the end of the dirt road. I've walked the distance of 2 blocks when I get this feeling of someone either watching or following me, but I blow it off because I've been told that I think too much, and my anxiety always makes me feel like someone is watching me when they really aren't. I kept walking as my music is still blaring in my ears. A semi-truck passes by. Next was an SUV. I watched as they drove far out until I could see no more lights. About 10 minutes pass by, and I get to a gas station. I go in and use the restroom, and come out and pay for Arizona iced tea, and make my way back out and start walking even further from home. This is where everything goes bad. I'm about 2 blocks from the gas station, and I see this pickup truck pass by very slowly. I look down at my phone, making it seem that their slow driving didn't bother me or that I didn't notice. It picks up speed after a minute and turns down a side road. I pass the side road that the truck turned down, and I see it stopped on the side with its hazard lights on, but I just kept walking. Still, I occasionally checked behind me to make sure that no one was following me. I hear the truck start up, and I look behind me, and I see that the truck is now slowly driving behind me. So I pick up my pace, and so did the truck. Scared, I made the first decision that went through my mind, which was to call my mom. Of course, being my luck, she didn't answer, so I left her a message. Then I decided to call my friend, who also didn't answer. So then I decided to run through a field and take cover on the ground behind a bush. As I'm laying on the ground, I hear brakes that are high-pitched. I look up and see the silhouette of a man coming in my direction, looking around with something in his right hand and a flashlight in his other hand. This man had to be about 6'5", weighing about 250 pounds. He was huge. After what seemed like forever, the man got back into his truck and drove off. I made a run for the closest store, but my heart sank and my face began to pale as I saw the same truck parked on the side of the road, and suddenly the lights turned on, blinding me as I ran the opposite way that I came from. But that was shortened when I heard a truck engine closing in. My heart was beating out of my chest, and tears non-stop were pouring out. I screamed out, "Leave me alone, please!" But that didn't work. He came even closer, within 5 feet of me, and my feet were bleeding from the gravel and broken glass. But I didn't pay attention to the pain, due to my adrenaline. I start losing my breath, and shortly after, I found myself becoming weak as I lost balance in my knees and fell face first into the grass, crying out and panting. The man gets out of his truck and heads towards me, stopping my escape. He grabs me and puts me over his shoulder. I'm screaming as loud as I can, but no one seems to hear. I kick and scream, but it doesn't faze the big guy. He throws me into the back seat of his truck and hops in and drives off, telling me to shut up and that we'll be home soon. I feel myself becoming dizzy and I pass out in the back seat. I'm awakened from someone pulling me aggressively. I see the man taking me into his house, locking the truck behind him as we enter. Sudden emptiness fills my heart and tears fill my eyes as I think to myself that this is it, and I never got the chance to say goodbye to my mom. The man sets me down on a couch and tells me not to move as I see another man who I assumed was his friend enter the room and stare me down. He smirks as he sees my red makeup-stained face. He says,
"Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere."
I look down at my wrist and see the cuts I made before I left home, thinking about my family and telling myself that this was my fault. I look up and I see the first man who took me. He comes in and sits in front of me in a chair and told me that if I tried to escape, he would kill me, so it wouldn't be worth running. I look him in the eyes and I spit in his face and smirked, saying, "You're foolish." This made him angry and he punched me, and with the knife he had in his hand, he sliced my leg about an inch deep and began choking me, telling me that I messed with the wrong man as he hit me again. He then spat on me as he walked out of the bedroom door, leaving his friend behind to watch me. I fell asleep towards 3 a.m. from exhaustion and was awoken to the first man softly running the tip of the knife up and down my thigh and going up more, pulling a bit on my underwear as he grins, running his fingers through my hair. He sees that I'm awake and tells me not to move because of the knife. I stay still and he starts to caress my chest and moves the knife to the floor. He grabs my thigh with his hand tightly and starts touching me and breathes heavily in my ear as he starts to sexually assault me. After he finished, he left me lying there naked as he stood and sat down in the corner of the room, staring me down, seeing the fear and sadness in my eyes. He then throws me some old dirty clothes and tells me to get up as he holds my arm tight. He then takes me to his truck and shoves me in. His friend climbs into the back seat. They take me and drop me off a block away from my home. He stops the truck and pushes me out, and I fell to the ground, and then he drives off, leaving dust and dirt filling the air. I run home. My mom and family take me inside. My mom took me to the bathroom, removing my clothes and filling the tub with warm water. She saw every cut and bruise that was made. I'll never forget that day. It made me realize just how lucky I was to be alive, and the only people who know about this are my family and the police. Hey guys, Unit 522 here, and I want to thank you very much for watching my video. I would appreciate it very much if you would share, like, and comment. And if you're new to this channel, become one with the Unity by hitting the subscribe button. If you have a scary story or experience that you want featured on this channel, you can always send it to my email or post it on the Free Horror Stories subreddit. The links for those can be found in the description below. If you would like to help out this channel even more, consider a PayPal donation. And for more updates, be sure to follow me on Twitter. There's nothing wrong with a little darkness in your life, as long as you never forget there's always a reason to be afraid.